They don't want to upset the apple cart, and they don't want to cause any harm. But if you don't like what they're going to do, you better not stop them, cause they're coming through. They're justified.
But what we found was that the rhetoric that they used to describe their goals, teaching for democracy, for social justice, for democratic citizenship, tended to mask the differences that we found within the programs. And we did both qualitative and quantitative studies of these different programs. We spent a lot of time with these programs. We did surveys. We talked to the kids. We talked to the teachers, and so forth. And one of the things we tried to do was come up with a loose typology for ways to help us talk about what these programs are trying to achieve and what kind of society they are trying to envision. And that's where the title comes from, What Kind of Citizen? The subtitle, The Politics of Educating for Democracy, is really meant to emphasize that our findings we saw as expressly political, and you saw that from the article, but I'll just say a couple of words about it. What we saw was that we loosely coined these three visions of citizenship, and I hope by reading the article you didn't try and conclude that every program has to sort of be hammered and squished into one conception of citizenship or the other. They're fluid, and any given program could fall into one or two or even three of the categories. They're not mutually exclusive. But what they are is helpful categories, we think, to be able to discuss the differences between the programs. And so the first kind, the three kinds, as you know, were personally responsible citizen, the participatory citizen, and the social justice-oriented citizen.
Needs to be talked about, and I think the dominant society needs to teach it. For me and for my kids to be proud of who they are. Other kids have to know.
I see it as a big problem all over Canada still, people's perceptions, and I think that it definitely should be taught in schools, because the way I was taught was the real way, and it made me have a lot of respect, and I don't think anyone here does. I shouldn't say anyone, but most people.
The conversation for me becomes much different now, because they're there, they're with me, and we have to treat things a lot differently now than can't just stay in a bubble, right?
I think Denis Rancourt definitely went through a period of radicalization. He moved from treating straight physics to beginning to teach a course in the social implications of science. And obviously science has huge implications in how it's employed in society. He began to teach about that, and increasingly his analysis became science in the larger scheme of global politics.
That event, there were about 500 people in attendance, including our rector, or you might call the president. And at one point during Ralph Nader's address, he asked the president, we were talking about the increasing commercialization of university research and university campuses. And I don't know if you're a Pepsi campus still, or if you've finally gotten rid of that. We're still a Coke campus. We can't get anything but Coca-Cola products in our vending machines or at our Aramark runs the campus food for a large part of campus food anyway. Ottawa U at the time was a Coke campus too, and we had a Coke bar, the Graduate Student Association. And so Ralph Nader asked the president if he would sign another exclusive deal or not with Coca-Cola. And I thought that was a respectful question. It wasn't meant to really put him on the spot. It was towards the end of his lecture. And the administration sort of reacted quite badly to it. The rector kind of stormed out of his own reception. It was a $5,000 reception that included free food and drinks. for all the 500 members of the community that were there, and Ralph Nader would be there signing books, and different guests of honor that were also present at this conference, including SAN students, members of the community, Father Frost, Denis Rancourt was there. The rector left. He didn't even stay for his own reception, like hosting Ralph Nader. And that was, I guess, my first indication that things may not be right, that, oh, actually there are boundaries to what you can say and do in a university. Until that point, I really believed in the institution. I thought it was an institution that believed in freedom of speech and really liked dissenting views, and it was my naive view that this was the case. And I guess that was my first awakening. I still hadn't awoken to the fact that I was filled with privilege by being white and male.
Knowing what we know, it's making me feel like a very guilty citizen. And, well, okay, I know about this going on here, but how do you, I guess in the end you have to choose your battles and choose which concerns are most relevant and important to you, but there's a fair amount of guilt and a fair amount of, well, how do we keep it going? Where do we go from here? And
the world is out of balance as this world. The point isn't that you should do everything. And that's the problem that often my students come to me with. How can I do everything? And my response is, don't do everything. Do something. One thing. Tell me what one thing you're doing, and then let's connect that up with some other thing that either you're doing or others are doing. Once we begin to build those connections and see the ways in which we actually might create a landscape that's more just, more fair, more full, more beautiful, then it's hard to stop, right? But the point is not to do everything. The point is the environment is out of balance. The point is that we have 2 million of our fellow citizens in prison, which means we have something like 15 million people directly affected by the prison explosion. It's a fact that we spend less on education than we do on prisons. These are things that you can get involved in. Peace, women's rights, the rights of gay and lesbian people, the rights of people of color. These are things one can get involved in. Getting involved anywhere, anytime, putting your toe in anywhere, actually can open up a world of possibilities.
Whoa, na 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 na.